Thank you, John. It is wonderful to be back with Comply. Well, if you're tuning in from somewhere across the globe, you have an interest in marketing compliance. Perhaps you're in marketing, maybe in compliance. Maybe it's a new role, a new team, a new business, or you're expanding into a new industry or building a new business model. Perhaps you have some love letters from regulators, internal audit, or some exam findings that say it's a good time to build a marketing compliance program. Whatever motivation brought you here today, our topic, how to build an effective marketing compliance program in under 90 days, will give you some ideas that you should be able to take back and implement immediately. Why 90 days or less? Business moves at the speed of thought today. Our debit and credit cards or touchless pay mechanisms can move money and code from point of sale for a sandwich through a half dozen computer systems and back again in less than 2 seconds. Consumers' attention and appetites change rapidly, and our business partners are striving daily to keep pace. Marketing and communications teams make ads with specific themes, and by the time the ad is ready for publication, social, legal, regulatory climates may change, and the ad may be offensive. Maybe it doesn't demonstrate the appropriate COVID guidelines now. For whatever reason, the ad is obsolete and marketing teams have to adjust quickly. And we in compliance should do the same. If business moves this fast with speed and quality, so should compliance. We are here to support the business. In the next 20 minutes, I'd like to share a step-by-step program I've used to build compliance programs in under 90 days. I've utilized this process to build marketing compliance programs for banking, investments, and insurance. I've also used it for privacy programs, monitoring programs, product review programs, and ethics and compliance programs, all with the same methodology. It takes a commitment and a significant investment of time up front. You will be tired. You'll be exhausted and burn the candle at both ends up front. I found that it pays 3 to 4x with the business and adoption of compliance in the future. Yes, this looks like a busy slide. Don't worry, we'll walk through it together, step by step, from day one to launch together. Let's start at the top left. The box that was blue is now green. It's stakeholder intake. In the first 30 days, let's start with stakeholder intake. Success or failure can depend on buy-in from people, which is why people are often the first consideration when I look to achieve alignment. Start with the C-suite. Ensure they understand the needs, regulatory issues, risks, rewards, and timeline. Keep your financial officer apprised of the range of costs so there are no surprises, especially as your firm gets closer to the decision. Without support from the top, adoption from the ranks tends to fizzle and fail. Next, align all stakeholders who will use compliance capabilities or be impacted by it. People tend to act for their reasons, not because compliance said so. To understand those reasons, consider hosting stakeholder meetings to gather their wants and needs and enlist their help in designing solutions. Include stakeholder needs from any prioritized regulatory requirements in the formal request for proposal. That's an RFP. So that these compliance solutions exist and we take their requirements into account. We'll talk more about the RFP process in the technology part of our discussion today. Next, map the stakeholders into roles, team leads, influencers, supporters. What you see on the screen here, you see the compliance reviewers. There's probably someone somewhere in the company that's doing this, maybe at the side of their desk as a collateral responsibility. Go to them. They know where the bodies are buried. They know what works. They know the people, the players. Respect them and don't shun them. Embrace them and bring them into the decision-making process. You also see all different types of submitters. Now, some firms, they only have marketing, but in today's environment, any communication from the firm can be reviewed and viewed as marketing. So consider all of them. If you're in insurance, you might have approving attorneys, you might have advisory attorneys, you might even have people on the outside. Include them because their voice matters, and this is part of their solution, not just compliance. Next, once you understand the stakeholders, understand the channels where communications and marketings happen in the company. I link them both here because in today's highly regulated world and the pace of business, as I said earlier, regulators often consider communications as marketing. Does your company blog? Who writes that blog? How often? Is it effective? What's the customer base? Is your company socially active? Where are the customers and does the company meet them where they are? Most importantly, where is the content stored? Hopefully you have a content hub like the image you see in the center of the screen. A centralized hub deploys content into different platforms. This is helpful for your risk assessment that we'll talk about later, and will be helpful when it comes to purging this content. The reason why I love a content hub is you update it once and it deploys in many places and updates all the time. Here are some questions you can ask your stakeholders. When you meet with them, it's best to have tailored questions for each group. Build a slide deck for that kickoff conversation. Let me give you some color commentary here. What are your thoughts on the current process? You want to ask everyone this because in their minds, the process may be 3 steps, and in another stakeholder's mind, it may be 9. Perspective matters here, and it's all relative, so says Einstein. What are your expectations and needs? We need to gather these from all the stakeholder groups because this is an ecosystem that must work together on behalf of the firm and the customers. What do you expect from compliance? Ask each group this. What do you expect and what do you need? What should stay the same? There are some things that are working well, and there are some things that need to change. And that's your last question that you ask there. But tailor that deck for each group and give them time to listen. In those stakeholder meetings, talk less, listen more. This is a very, very important slide here, and it seems a little busy, but what you have to do is build an interaction model early on between counsel and compliance. Why? Let's say you're asking why. Business partners need to know who to go to for what. Oftentimes, we, being compliance and legal, don't know our roles, and if we don't know our roles, neither does the business. Map it out, have a shared elevator speech. Now, in a normal business, in a high-functioning marketing compliance program, legal should be involved 15 to 20% of the time. That's the new, the novel, and the high-risk issues. Do they need to be involved in the day-to-day? Hopefully, they've seen the day-to-day a lot, and they don't really need to be involved. That's why you see the 15 to 20% time up on the screen. When we bring them in for the new marketing, we're developing new marketing or new products and services, they definitely need to be there to help us mitigate risk. Counsel doesn't want to be in everything, and oftentimes counsel may not want to use the tools. So find a way to get their feedback the way they like to consume the information. Know which attorney has expertise in what areas. That's going to be really important. And then create a list of the attorneys that are supporting the marketing compliance program, their roles, and how best to reach them. Maintain that personally for your team, and also publish that also for your business partners that need to seek them out. Now, let's talk about the risk assessment. That's the new green box you see there on the chart on your screen. Hopefully, after you've done your stakeholder intake meetings and discussions, you will know and understand the people, process, and technology. What you're understanding is what I like to call the as-is state. And you will need this information for your risk assessment and to develop the to-be state. There are many risk assessment methodologies and approaches. Use whichever one that is comfortable for you. I highly recommend using a presentation format that the business will understand. You can use whatever you want with your risk team and using all the wonderful technology and frameworks, but for the business, make it simple and clear. I often say, if you can explain this to a 5-year-old, then you can explain it to anyone. Make it that simple. Pre-share your findings with the stakeholders again before formally presenting the findings so there's no surprises. This builds good results and rapport and trust. Let's walk through the example that you see on your screen. Again, we're analyzing people, process, and technology. And here's some questions you can ask, and you see it's very simple. Red, yellow, green. Red needs attention right now. Yellow is an issue and probably addressed by a love letter, perhaps from your regulator or maybe even internal audit. And green is good and things we want to persist. Culture, does the organization respect compliance? You'll know that from your stakeholder meetings. What's the turnaround time from receipt to return? Now, this is a double-edged sword here because you can go so fast that the business and the regulators may think that you're missing certain things. So you have to balance compelling and compliant in that equation. Is there a history of regulatory findings? You'll know that, and perhaps the reason why you were here and this team is necessary is because of those regulatory love notes. Is there a dedicated team? And if there is, are they staffed appropriately? We look at the process. What's the quality of advice from the current team? Is there automation? This is really important. Humans don't need to do things that automation can do. You can have robotic process automations. You can have artificial intelligence that can scan documents. Is that in place, and does it need to be in place? And the next part is quality control. And for quality control, do you have written policies and procedures? What regulators love is to say, show me your procedures. And most of the time, for most companies, they're shelfware. When you pull them off, people in the business and in compliance don't even know the process. A process exists. It should mirror and be the same as what's in writing. Let's talk technology for a second. What workflow tool is in production? Sometimes the workflow is email. Sometimes it's an info path. There is something. Is it working well? Does the tool meet all your regulatory requirements? And do you have access controls to the information? Once your approvers click approve, can anybody go undo that? And will the tool grow with the company? This is really important. We don't just solve for today's needs and what the company has. Will it grow with the company when you add customers and add products? These are questions that you should have in your risk assessment. And as you socialize before formal meetings, you'll get more input and more buy-in. Now let's discuss the one-year plan that you will build and share. Well, Sal, you just said we're going to do this in 90 days. Well, yes, I did. But what we're going to do here is this is a pro tip for you. Under promise, over deliver. The plan takes work. You have to make the investment of time up front, and it will save you a lot of time on the back end. What we have in quarters can actually be done with the right coordination, planning, and execution in weeks time. Everything you see here can be done in 90 days or less, but you have to have a plan and you got to put the work in. You want to share this up front and then over deliver. Now let's talk people, process, and technology in building your plan. The information that you have from the stakeholder engagement and intake helps you build alignment with the risk assessment and alignment with your stakeholders. Let's first start with people here. As I said earlier, people are the lifeblood of a company. Recruiting the right people in today's competitive landscape is critical. The wrong fit can destroy culture, inhibit employee engagement, and weaken customer satisfaction. Just because you're moving fast doesn't mean you have to settle or put warm bodies in a role. Never settle. In your process, use these 5 steps. Assess the current and future needs. Build a job family. Build individual roles. Include stakeholders in the interview that you're building for your team, and meet weekly with recruiting. Now, most companies today have an applicant tracking system that pre-screen resumes. Recruiting teams vet these candidates of what you want. All this pre-work should be done prior to the interview process. And so when you're looking at candidates, I'm going to give you another pro tip that I've used to hire people for the last 20 years. And I only hire candidates after they've been through the hiring stage from the recruiting team, but I look for these 5 traits, and they haven't failed me thus far, and it's led to teams that have amazing accomplishments. These 5 traits are happy, humble, hungry, fit, and function. And happy is the glass half full and not half empty. We're going to spend a lot of time together as a team. I don't want curmudgeons who have a bad day every day. Humble, I look for the smartest people, but they don't have to be the smartest people in the room. Hungry is not for food. It's people who are willing to learn, irrespective of the stage they are in their career. Fit, can they fit into our team, our culture, and can they grow with the team and the company? And function, yes, that's the job, but I not only look for people who can do the job, but I can see them 2 roles ahead in this team or somewhere else in the company. Let's talk process now. Document the as-is process from stakeholder intake and risk assessment. Determine the number of steps from creation to publishing. And as you do the stakeholder assessment, as I've said with you, you'll be surprised how many different variations to the process exist. Many folks think the process have 3 steps, some as many as 10. Communicate this when you share the plan. Build a future process with simple steps from the stakeholder perspective. I like a restaurant perspective. The example I like to give here is, number 1, no one goes to a restaurant to be in the kitchen. They want to see the finished meal and know that it's healthy and been prepared right. Same thing with compliance. They want to know that they can get advice, review, and approval in the restaurant, have that same perspective. Keep it easy for them and deliver them quality food every time. Same thing with your advice, review, and approval. Don't invite them into your kitchen. Build tools the business can immediately use that improves the process and strengthens trust and positions your compliance program as a supporter of the business. I usually, before I deliver the program, start with the law and reg library. Every program starts with law and regs. I build it, and then that's where it helps me find risks that the regulators will look for, and also helps me find the risks that are in the current as-is process. Verbiage, do's and don'ts. What are regulatory trigger words? The business needs this. Also create a checklist. What are the answers to the test before the test? People love guidelines and things that, and if you give them these, it will help them go faster. Next, give them some intellectual property guidelines. These are just based on laws and regs and what your company prefers. Can you put copyrighted information in your marketing? Do you need employees to sign off before you put them in ads? Put that out there and the business will thank you for it long before you promote and produce your program. Let's talk technology. Workflow. Employees in the stakeholders group may rely upon this tool on a daily basis. A user interface can make or break adoption. Do not settle for a clunky system that meets all regulatory requirements, but is so difficult to use, people intentionally avoid it. Insist on intuitive workflows. And as I said earlier, far too often firms make technology bets against their own success. This is for scalability. Having a clear picture of what the needs of the firm are today, how will they store data, transaction rates, user base and location, make sure that you can grow with the firm. It's not uncommon that high quality tools that we buy today become more broadly used for things that are never intended. Security. Protecting the firm and its customer information is one of the highest priorities. Know how each compliance capability meets the privacy for the firm, including GDPR, CCPA, FedRAMP, FINRA, Code of Federal Regulations. Understand the certifications, SOC 1 and SOC 2. Understand access controls, authentication. Ensure that these standard tools can be utilized for SCIM. Reject any technology that doesn't integrate with your firm's SSO. The last thing users need is another password to manage. Get reporting early. Most companies turn this off in the design phase, in the early phase. Quality reporting is necessary and absolutely critical. And as I said earlier, automation is important. You need this. Your employees don't need to be doing mundane tasks all the time. Use their amazing brains for higher value work. Let's talk and stress test the plan, the change management plan. The key message here is having a programmatic change management strategy, and this is essential. Consult experts that use a change management framework within the firm. The one I use is ADCAR, and it's with ProSci. There's other ones you can use. Have a common language that both individuals and the organization utilize. If your firm has a change management team, ask for help. This plan you see here partners the human emotional part of change with the business need of change, and they go in lockstep. If you do the bottom without the top, your adoption will fail. On this slide, we hit awareness, desire, and knowledge. Awareness for need. We've done a lot of this in the stakeholder assessment, and this is probably why your team is here. Always link things to your mission. Desire to support the change, uncover the employees' resistance, and help the employees manage that. Loop in your leadership team and their managers for that help. Without awareness and desire to change, employees cannot move to knowledge. You have to work with your senior leaders and managers to help you here in the knowledge phase if you want employees to grow and change. The latter part, ability and reinforcement, give the employees the ability to demonstrate their skills. They need time. Have your team available on demand In today's world, it's all Zoom. In the future, when we're back in the office, if an employee or a leader asks a question, get up and go to their desk and help them. Or log in today and Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever your company uses and help them. Provide formal and informal training with this. Reinforcement to make the change stick. The brain is wired for habit. Help the employees create new habits. Celebrate and recognize their accomplishments. It's really important for them to grow. Let's talk about rolling out your change management plan. 2 weeks before launch, tease the launch in all your internal channels. And get your communications team, they do this for a living. They will gladly help because you brought them in as a stakeholder early on. 1 week before launch, meet with your stakeholders, managers, and senior leaders. Send out teasers again internally and demo the tool for your stakeholders. Hopefully you have an all-employee meeting where you can have a creative launch with fun themes and you can communicate the benefits to the employees and the companies and the customers. 3 to 4 weeks after launch, you'll roadshow the launch and the benefits and all the success that you're having in staff meetings, conduct training sessions and on-demand training, and then follow up with the managers to ensure adoption. This is so important. This is the human element because humans are wired for habit. The last part is be creative. Build excitement and enthusiasm for your program. Now, what you're doing here is building an emotional connection and inspiring employees to own compliance. To do so, speak their language by communicating with ideas, themes, and concepts that resonate with them. Instead of pulling them into the lower recesses of policies, procedures, regulatory language, use examples that have an emotional connection. Now, I've used superhero themes before to signify that all employees are empowered to own compliance, and I've promoted using a live rap that demonstrates how to operate with compliance top of mind. I've had NBA champions do fireside chats on ethics and launch cultural themes for other programs. An emotional connection into our colleagues' world is important. Actualize the core values. I want to put that here because linking what you're doing to the core values is a key component to your success. Magic starts happening when creativity is unleashed, not only with your team, but also with your business partner. And include your high-level engagement. That you did it initially with the stakeholder engagement, you're going to do it again with the creative launch and approach. Well, we started our conversation today when I asked you if you're in a new role and a new team. You might have some wonderful love letters from regulators or internal audit. Whatever your motivation, hopefully the process and steps we discussed gave you a few nuggets and ideas to build your program. Why 90 days? As I said, business moves at the speed of thought. You will be exhausted using this program and you will burn the candle at both ends. I found that it pays 3 to 4 times with the business and adoption of compliance in the future. Your program is worth it, your business is worth it, and your customers are worth the investment too.